This video is going to be sort of an analysis of the calling, but I think far more than that, it's going to be an analysis of Anduin and specifically what Anduin is going to be doing. What can we expect from Anduin? He's been gone for quite some time. He looks to finally be back. So we're going to be talking about that. And
Oh, fractals. The fractaline nature of everything never ceases to amaze me.
talking a little bit about the light's place in all of this. So, firstly, let's talk about the calling. In the calling, I think the book does an incredible job of explaining to us, giving us insight into the mindset of Anduin. And there are two fundamental things that is currently wrong with Anduin. Number one is that Anduin refuses to use the light. Now, this is very different. I've heard some people sort of claim that this is similar to what Thrall went through, and this is just a recycled story of the Thrall story. That's wrong. Just going to say. So with Thrall, the ancestors and the elements actually refused to answer Thrall. And this had to do with Thrall not believing in himself and not trusting that he could still wield the elemental powers. And so the elements couldn't answer him. With Anduin, it's similar but not the same. Anduin refuses to even try. Unlike Thrall, that did try, so nothing happens. Nothing.
Yeah, Anduin's despairing. Anduin has lost hope. But I actually have a whole video about how Anduin is a beacon of hope. And how... And I think we all know he'll get his light back. Probably just maybe in a different form.
Nothing happens. Anduin refuses to even try, even in the moment when one of his friends, someone who became a very dear friend to him, lies dying. And if you haven't read The Calling yet, I read it for you, so you can just listen to mine on the channel.
He's lost faith in himself.
If you don't want to read it yourself, or go read it yourself, it's pretty good. Even when his friend is lying there dying, Anduin will not even try. And Anduin will not try because he's afraid. He's afraid of the light not answering because he doesn't know what he would be without the light. He has spent his entire life using the light in service of his people. And then the next thing that sort of keeps Anduin at bay, and one of the reasons he's kept himself apart from everyone else, is fear. Anduin doesn't quite know who or what enjoyed being controlled by Zuval. In fact, it's hinted at multiple times and even stated outright that while he was under the mind control of Zuval, he enjoyed it. And he doesn't know if it was the spirit of the corrupted Shalamon or Charlemagne, but Shalamon, I think, should have been the name of the sword. They went with Kingsmorn, but what do I know?
Yeah, Shalamorn would have been way better. Why would they call it Kingsmorn? That is fucking weird. They should have called it Shalamorn. That would have been. It's literally fits in the name.
I'm just a YouTuber that thinks Shalamorn is a much cooler name than Kingsmorn.
Yeah,
never mind that.
I agree.
He doesn't know if it was maybe Arthas that enjoyed it, and he felt that joy from Arthas. Was it Zuval that enjoyed it, and that's what he felt, or was it him? He doesn't know how to discern between the different beings that were a part of him during all of that. And so he doesn't trust himself. He doesn't know what would happen if he lost himself. And that's why he hides the sword and all of his armor and everything in a cave, right? So far away that no one could ever find it. Because again, he does not want to help anyone because he doesn't trust that once he has that sword and he wields and he dons that armor, he'll be able to stop. Maybe he goes on and he just kills a bunch of innocent people, and that would be kind of problematic. So he doesn't want to go.
And that's exactly what the situation is that unfolds in the short story. That he just kind of goes nuts on these bandits, and by the time he comes to his senses and realizes what's going on, he's like almost about to strike this girl, this innocent little girl, who obviously has the show. It's basically a situation that is there to help have a little faith restored in Anduin. Anduin had some faith restored in himself by the complete innocence and trust and faith of that little girl, basically saying like, I knew that you wouldn't hurt me. Like, even though you were fucking scary and you were just going crazy on those guys, Anduin says to her, how do you know that like, what if I killed you? And she's like, I knew you wouldn't. And that right there is faith. That's trust in somebody. And Anduin's very much lacking that for himself. So to get that from someone else was very meaningful for Anduin, because it showed him that even though his own mind and his thoughts are clouding his judgment of himself, others around him are still able to see him for who he is, and still able to see the virtue in him and to see that he is not lost. He's not lost to darkness. Even the most innocent and pure-hearted are able to see that. And I think not even, but especially they are, I would say, right, in the form of this child. And so I thought that was really nice, because it was basically someone saying like, it's a little bit of a wake up call to Anduin, like Anduin, you did what you had to do. You did the right thing. No one got hurt on your account. It was not your fault. And you know what? There's these people trust you. These people fucking trust you, and they don't even know who you really are, and they trust you. And so it's a little bit of, give yourself some fucking credit, Anduin. Give yourself a little credit, man. Like, you can't live in fear of what could happen should you try to help people, because then you're just going to be bound to inaction. You're going to be paralyzed. You have to do it, and you have to trust yourself to do it. I relate to that in ways of like my videos, right? Thinking that, some of my theories are too harebrained or whatever. I don't know if I could return to doing produced videos like I did before, because they were speculative and kind of, not that what I do now isn't, but more crazy, and I didn't have as much inhibition. And now that I'm older and more judgmental of myself, I'm a little less inclined to do that type of content, because I don't necessarily trust that it's as good as what I want it to be. Even though there are people around me saying, no, Pyro, do it. Like, we love it. Like, even the stuff that you think was subpar, like, we love to watch it. Like, it's what got us into it, right? So I can relate to Anduin in that way of like kind of not trusting in your ability, in your innate thing that you do, kind of losing that for a little while, kind of feeling like, man, kind of getting like lost in the darkness a little bit. So I can relate to that. I think that's pretty cool. And sometimes the words from other people can spur us into action, can help us to realize like, you've still got a flame in there. You just need to you need to nurture it. You need to help it grow, sometimes, because the darkness kind of starts to close in, and there's a risk that it kind of snuffs that flame out. And so Anduin's kind of in the process of rekindling that flame, rediscovering really his inner power, not this faith and this extrinsic power that guides him to the fate that he deserves or whatever, that is the light. No, Anduin is realizing that this stuff is within him. It's inside of him. And that light and dark outside of him are just the same as what's inside of him. And he's on a journey of self-discovery, as a young man of his age should be, It's, young men around that age, 23 to 25, probably should be confronting some of those things. People in general should be confronting those darknesses, the possibilities of them having some aspects of themselves that maybe are not the most admirable or noble, and sometimes having to stop and accept that maybe there is a part of them that, when feeling vindictive or vengeful, has a sense of satisfaction from causing other people to go through suffering. I think there's a lot of young people nowadays, especially young men, who don't give a fuck about the impact that they have on other people. They don't care about, they don't give a shit about pretty much anyone but themselves. And I just think it's a good message to go into, of like how through discovery of other people, how you can also kind of discover yourself and realize that, and accept, right, that there maybe are parts of you that do that, but to not let it consume you. There's a lot of potential Arthuses out there in the world right now, and I would like there to be more Anduins, because I think Anduin would get more things done than Arthas. Arthas would get things done, but he would force you into it and bend you to his will in order to accomplish it. So, it is what it is. Sorry to interrupt the react. I need you to know the creator of Gorgon's who's now aware of the Apexis cheese theory. We made it. Good.
And throughout the short story, Anduin comes to realize that no, he's cool. He's good. Now I want to focus on the light bit a little bit because I do think that's where the most interesting the sort of part of him not trusting himself that is sorted out in the short story already.
No, I don't think that's true because then you see the cutscene with Thrall where that's clearly not sorted out. This is a common misconception, okay? Struggles like what Anduin is going through isn't resolved in a day. This isn't the kind of thing that's even resolved in a week. There's a reason why Anduin's been away for a long time. Because these are not things that are just resolved in a moment. It's not. Let me put it this way. Anduin, it's not like a fix it. This isn't an engine that you can just put new parts in and tighten it up and it's good. It's not how this works. What Anduin is dealing with will probably be a lifelong struggle. It's not something that Anduin's just going to get over. The guy's exhibiting pretty severe signs of PTSD. You know, it's not, and he's going to have bad days. He's going to have good days. He's going to have days where the darkness creeps in and he's fucking struggling. Like, that's how this shit works. And then he's going to have days where it's good and the light is fucking there and he believes in himself and he's, you know, doing that. Like, it's an up and down, man. Mental health struggles are not just a fix it one and done. And I think that that's something that people really need to, you know, accept from this, is that, like, this is not a one-stop shop. You don't just fix really deeply scarring trauma. It's not like that. And there's many people in the world that seem to think that you can, that you just go see a therapist, or that you just take some medication, or that you just stop being a pussy and it just goes away. It's a very ignorant take because they themselves may not be dealing with it, cannot conceive of such things. And that often has to do with empathy and compassion, frankly, which are things that can be further developed and learned if you're nurtured to value those things, which you should as a fucking human being. You know, I feel like it's one of those things, right? It's like this. It isn't an easy fix, and if it was, people that struggle with it, they would just fix it. You know what I mean? So I really do feel like the Void storylines and stuff, I really feel like this is going to be a lot to do with, you know, with mental health struggles, man. And I think that that's a good thing. I mean, it's great for someone like me who can relate to that and you know, does what he can to overcome those kinds of things. But, you know, it's not something that you can just reject either. You know, you can't just reject the void. You can't just reject the darkness. It's not how it works. Whether you want to admit it or not, it's still fucking there. You know, you can cover it up with facades and masks, but it's still there.
When he does finally save a group of people and he realizes that he is still good. You know, he didn't go on a killing spree. He didn't kill a bunch of innocent people.
He let his fury in the dance that he did with the blade, he let that be used for something benevolent. And that is such a sick theme. His anger, his rage, his doubts, his fears, he channeled them into a weapon. Guys, do you realize what is happening with that theme? He's not the first character who's done that. Sorry, Garrus. But he's learning to make the vices, how to use them for virtue. That's the key. This whole thing is not about just accepting that darkness is there. It's learning how to take your reactions to darkness. Xenosis Vex taught me the same fucking thing. It's not about that you're enraged. It's okay that you're enraged. It's about how you channel that rage. And he said to me, Pyro, when you channel that rage at someone like me or at chat or something, it's not productive for you. It doesn't help you it's not helping you reach your end goal. And he said to me, you know what I do when I get fucking pissed? I go lift weights. And he said, because it helps me, I channel that into something positive for myself, because otherwise I would just sit there and fucking rage at people on the internet all the time. And he just said that straight up to me. And I was like, you know, that's really fucking true, man. And that's why I don't really believe in like a hardline destiny, but I believe that part of what I'm doing in my life is correct and what I should be doing, because when you have all of these themes kind of indicating it, you talk to other people in real life who indicate the same thing. Your favorite characters are doing the same things. I feel like it's the universe kind of trying to speak to me a little bit to a degree. So
he did sort of get a lot angry at the bad guys, and he did kill all of the bad guys, but he didn't kill any of the good people, you know? And he had the ability to stop. He had the ability to sort of halt himself. So that takes care of that fear. The light is a very interesting one. Now, I want to be very clear. Anduin's service of his people through the light is very different to what the members of the army of the light does. So people like Turalyon, for example, serve the light. And while, yes, in a lot of cases, the light and what the light wants is the protection of the people, they still serve the light. Now, with Turalyon, it is sort of a mixed bag. You have Illyria in there that is sort of, I guess you could say, kind of softening Turalyon a little bit.
True, Taro.
Because
Mount Ordeals.
ordinarily, if you are part of the light, part of the army of the light, you are single-minded in your hatred of everything that isn't light. Now, of course, Turalyon can't be that because the one he loves most in this world is literally the opposite of the light. And so Turalyon does have that sort of mindset. Now, I have theories about what could potentially happen to Turalyon. For example, I believe that something's going to happen to Illyria in Midnight, towards the end of the War Within, and then going into Midnight. I believe that Illyria is going to be lost to the void. This is going to push Turalyon into a complete light frenzy, and that will then bring Arator, the child of light and shadow, to the fore, because Arator is the one that's supposed to restore balance. Now, the light believes that the child of light and shadow can only restore balance insofar as the light views balance as the light winning. The void obviously views balance as the void winning. But balance would mean that neither side wins and both become balanced. And I believe that's where Arator is going to come in. You're going to have Illyria at the forefront leading the armies of the void, and you're probably going to have Turalyon at the forefront leading the armies of the light, and Turalyon being completely overcome with devastation and sadness and anger at the loss of Illyria. They're just going to clash, and chaos is going to ensue, and their child, Arator, the child of light and shadow, is going to be the one that sort of, calms things down a little and rebalances things. That's sort of my speculation theory about that. But in that moment, should Turalyon go full light Nazi, the light doesn't put people or mortals above its own ambitions. So if you are a servant in the army of the light, then you serve the light first. And if the light's ambitions and the interests of mortals were to ever collide, were to ever cross to where the light needs to kill a bunch of mortals in order to do their thing, I guarantee you that the light will cross those lines. And before you think to yourself, well, Turalyon wouldn't do that, that's not who he is, we already saw at the start of Shadows Rising what Turalyon was willing to do. While Illyria was torturing innocent people, civilians, Turalyon was holding them down using the light. So clearly the whole, save people, help people with the light, didn't really apply when they were hunting Sylvanas. So, and you might say, well, this was an important thing. Sylvanas is a real threat, and they have to take care of Sylvanas. And to that, I would say, well, morality does not care about the circumstance in which you apply it. If you are a moral being, then you would apply morality in all things. Anduin, for example, I can't imagine ever holding people down so that they can be tortured. Unless, of course, Duval is mind controlling them. So just there. And I do think that it makes for a really good dynamic. The way that I read the short story before the calling about Illyria and Arator and Turalyon, it feels like Blizzard is truly setting up Illyria and Turalyon's love story to be a sort of heartbreak moment. And I want to prepare people for that. Blizzard have
Sin,
already
thanks for the 6
said
months, by the way.
that
Appreciate that. Congrats on the new sub
players
badge.
should be willing to lose people in this expansion because it doesn't mean anything if there aren't any stakes. And one of the most assured ways of getting people involved in a story is a love story that breaks, right? So, you know, long lost loves, they've been each other's worlds pretty much for thousands of years, at least to their perspectives. And if that love were to break, I think a lot of people would be very involved in that. And it looks like Blizzard is doing their utmost to sort of cement their love story, only to tear it down. That's my prediction. Maybe I'm wrong, but I do think that is going to happen. Because I think fundamentally that plays into what Midnight is going to be. Xalatath leading the forces of the Void with Locust Walker. And ladies and gentlemen, I can't express to you how little trust I have for Locust Walker. I made an entire video about it.
I think this is interesting. I mean, I kind of trust Locust Walker. Not gonna lie. I think he's on the redemption arc.
I don't trust
and he probably ends up sacrificing himself, if I had to guess.
Dude. He just happened to show up at this very opportune moment. He stops Illyria from joining the Army of the Light, instead introduces her to the service of the Void. And then...
No, that's not what happened. No. That's not what happened at all. The Locust Walker literally teaches Illyria how not to serve the Void. He also just doesn't show up. Illyria finds him in a fucking Legion prison. They're like jailed together. And she happens to free him, and so he's like, fuck it, I'll help you. It's like, yeah, so Accolonn would attribute that to not being random, but that's the very nature of it. Possibility. Opportunity. You know? And while Illyria's destiny, according to Locust Walker, could very well be unique, I don't feel that he just randomly appeared. I feel like he's done well to like teach Illyria how to wield the Void without succumbing to it, which is the whole point. If he just wanted to make Illyria a Void mind slave, then why wouldn't he just go for that, you know? He wouldn't be teaching her about the difference between the Void's desires, plans, and fears. He wouldn't be teaching her about discerning what is real from it and what isn't. He wouldn't be doing all of that. I feel like everything Locust Walker has done is antithetical to the idea that's being put forth that he's just subtly and sneakily actually manipulative and trying to get Illyria to succumb to the darkness. It's like everything about Locust Walker says the opposite. The way he interacts with Xalatath suggests that. The way that he is hated by many of the other ethereals could suggest that. Again, I don't know. I understand, and I'll probably end up having to eat my words with this guy, but Locust Walker has actually given me more reason to trust him than most of the characters that we come across.
Continuously pushes her to go deeper, to give in more, to accept more power from the Void, even though we know that no one can withstand the power of the Void.
I don't agree with that. That's the whole point. Like, that's the point, is that you can. Like, the Void isn't some inevitable, unknowable, incomprehensible, ineffable darkness. Like, it is, but the whole point is that you can control it. Like, the whole point of the 1000 Years of War storyline is that Illyria's willpower changed the Void. It literally changed what... Instead of the Void controlling her, she was controlling it. And that's the key here, is that, yes, it can be harnessed. The Void is uncertain. It's afraid. It sits on the fence, and it doesn't really know which way it's going to go. Both are options, and both have some options on each side, and that's good. But it's unsure of itself. The Void's waiting for something to come along and push it off the fence. You know what I'm saying? So this idea that the Void cannot be controlled, I do not agree. Illyria's whole story is about the concept that it is controllable. It is resistible. And with the power, with your willpower, that is possible.
As I said in my breakdown of that video, the problem with the Void is that not even Neltharion, a dragon placed by the Titans, not even Neltharion could withstand the whispers and the powers of the...
Yeah. Yeah, and there's like the will of the Earth Warder and all that stuff, but they're not perfect beings. I think what needs to be recognized here is that mortals are better than eternal beings in some ways. Okay? So like, for instance, just because he's a dragon and just because he's empowered by the Titans does not mean that he has more willpower. In fact, it might mean he has less. Okay? The key with mortals, again, and especially those from Azeroth, is their willpower. Right? It's about willpower, which Neltharion may have already had less of due to being ordered. Okay? So, I don't think Neltharion is not the prodigal child of willpower and resistance. He's just not. He was deceptive from the start. He wanted to hide what he was doing from Alexstrasza. The Void he didn't succumb to the Void until deep into the conflict between the Primalists and the Aspects. Like, it's not I just don't think he's the best example for willpower. Okay? Yeah.
And the whispers and the powers.
Stop the video before 1345. He has a spoiler at the end of the video. Okay. Tolkien tells the same story with hobbits versus men. Hobbits have a stronger will than men in being able to resist the power of the ring. Yeah, there you go. Also, having willpower might do the opposite. The void is ever shifting. You don't control it by repressing it, but by letting it in. I mean, yes and no. I think it's a subtle integration. I don't think it's something you just let in and, oh, there we go. Giving in to the void, not a good idea either. Again, it is always best to study the darkness. That way you can face it head on rather than falling backwards blindly into it. So just letting it in, it's not, this is very specific. This is about understanding. The void and its inherent themes are very much tied to mystery, understanding, secrecy, truth. Like, it's been an underlying theme of the void for a long ass time. And so I just think, like, this is very specific. It's you don't just let the void in. The void needs to be controlled. And it takes someone with a strong will who can sift through the things that the void shows you in order to control it. And that's what Illyria is. That's her unique destiny, is learning how to control it.
Of the void. And you're telling me that Illyria is somehow going to be doing that?
Yeah.
I doubt. I just doubt. I don't think that you can truly prepare yourself to the point where standing against those whispers is possible.
I do. I do. I do. And again, as someone who relates this all heavily to mental health struggles, I really do think you can. The whispers in your mind, like, come on. It's almost as hardline fucking schizophrenic as you can get. Like, look, dude. It's BPD, it's bipolar, it's schizophrenia, it's anxiety, it's depression. But this is the thing about willpower. These are things that you can learn to overcome or to channel into positive aspects. Yasharaj is like the same, it's like a living, breathing concept of that. From the negative, you can unlock deeper positives. The brightest lights cast the darkest shadows, right? And from light comes shadow, and from shadow, light. And so I just think that it is something that can be resisted. It is something that can be controlled. And I think that some of the most tragic cases of people committing suicide, doing horrific acts of violence against other people, those are people who gave in to the whispers. You know? Those are people who gave in. Or, you know, things happen in their life and they broke down. They got broken down. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that you can fight the whispers, dude. Like, you can go against that internal dialogue that's trying to sow doubts within you. That voice that tells you that your friends don't like you, and that you're a burden to your parents, or that you suck at your job, or that no one likes you, or that you're stupid and you're ugly. Those are all the whispers of the void. Do you understand? The things that tell you that your partner is going to leave you, that's the void, You understand? It's that. And that's not true. Like, that's the thing, is those things are only true if you let them be true. Like the light and like Illidan's destiny. We're not defined by preordained, preset things, right? If you exert your power of free will, you can defy the whispers. And it's not easy. It's not easy. Neltharion proves it. It's not easy, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. And just because something's not easy doesn't mean it's not worth doing.
And I think that Locust Walker knows this. I think Locust Walker is preparing her. Now, I've made an entire video about
I get what you mean.
what he's preparing her for. You can go watch that. But the long story short is, this brings in the light. This brings Anduin very much to the fore. Remember, Anduin right now, yes, he's back, but he's not back as the King of Stormwind. Anduin isn't back as the leader of the Alliance. You can see it in the cinematic with Thrall. He wants to know what is going on. He wants to know where these voices are coming from, where this vision is coming from. But Anduin is in no way or shape or form back as the King of Stormwind or even as the leader of the Alliance. He doesn't believe that he belongs there yet. Maybe there's still some growth that needs to take place, but we don't. What we know is that he just doesn't want it yet. That leaves Turalyon. And this means that should Turalyon become more fanatical in the light, this drags the Alliance alongside him, right? It pulls the Alliance towards the light in a much harsher fashion than...
So did Xal'atath somehow contribute to Anduin's story in Shadowlands and him falling into this despair? Perhaps not directly. She doesn't have to contribute to it, though. The Void... Okay. The Void isn't the source of all your problems. The Void seeks to take advantage of your problems, okay? So it's not literally the reason for all the bad things that happen to you, thereby, oh, she has broken Anduin. It's all some super long-term plot. Like, no. She doesn't need to. Xal'atath is a master manipulator, and that's all she's doing. She's manipulating the negativity that people are finding in themselves against them. She hasn't... It's not like she's specifically ordained this fate for Anduin. Like, that's not what the point is. The point is that all she has to do is convince you. Do you guys see this? Xal'atath has the power of it's so fucking easy. Like, watch Shogun. I get so angry at this topic, and I'm gonna try not to, but just watch Shogun. Just watch that show. Like, people do not understand how easily and deeply they are deceived probably every day of their life, dude. It's like literally, in someone like Xal'atath's position, all you have to do is get people to believe the lie. Because like I said earlier, it's like Inarius and Lilith. If you get someone to believe that the thing that's happening to them is out of their control, what do you think their response is going to be? They're going to give in to it. That's the whole point. Xal'atath is a good warmongerer because she knows how to manipulate people. She knows how to make you fight yourself. She knows how to get the enemy's army to deliver itself unto her. That's the whole point, in my opinion, is that it's deception. Don't believe it. Don't believe it. That's what I'm trying to warn you of. Don't believe it. Don't believe that there is inevitability in the void and that you must bend to it. Don't fucking accept that. Don't. That's what she wants. She wants you to believe that the inevitability rests in the void.
Than ever before. But this also sets up a very unique opportunity for Blizzard to create a duality of choice, where players can choose to go with Turalyon and the Army of the Light, or Illyria and the Army of the Void, especially if Blizzard creates it correctly to showcase that neither of these two forces actually have the best interests for Azeroth in mind. And so, we have to sort of pick between two very evil things because we can't fight both at the same time. So if we want to win, we first have to beat the one and then beat the other one. And then maybe Arator will be that voice of reason.
I could actually get behind that, and I feel like that's what Chris Metzen was really heavily suggesting, that we're going to push back the shadow and the void and all that, and then we're going to see what the light really has to offer. And so, yeah, I agree that if that does happen and we push it back or whatever, that we're going to be immediately facing another problem. And I think that as Accolonn is discussing it probably will be the light.
That comes in and finally calms the two sides down and brings balance so that we can kick ass and take names. So that's my sort of thinking about it when it comes to Midnight and what Midnight is. I think we're originally going to see the Void make major gains in Midnight. That's when we'll see the activation of the light, and the light will obviously now, at this point, you will almost definitely see Titan involvement. Because remember what Accolonn said, they will only come once Azeroth is in danger. They will not come when the mortals are in danger. They couldn't give two craps. But once Azeroth is, that's when they'll arrive. I can't think of more dangerous territory for...
And that's where they'll try to steal the world soul away like they did with Koresh. And this is what people just aren't getting. And Xal'atath hints at this as well. Do the Naru speak of the eternal conflict, that the entire history of your world is but a fraction of the time that has passed? Of those that came before the Draenei? No? They've been moving this world soul around for a long time. People say, oh, what if it's an echo, Pyro? No. What if it's a different world soul with the exact same song somehow? No. It's Azeroth.